They're all good seats. Please take your seat immediately. The ceremony's starting. Roll the video.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.
Gotcha.
Never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.
936 acres. That's what makes up the University of Wisconsin. But that's not what the UW is made of. This is an institution that pays no attention to boundaries, except when it's pushing them. Where others see limits, Badgers see new frontiers and are limited only by the imagination. Because Wisconsin is inspired by an idea. The Wisconsin idea.
He's across the border. Open up the history books. Here comes Rondé.
I shall never be content until the beneficent influence of the university reaches every family of the state.
A guiding philosophy that defies the odds. A calling to go beyond. It's what drives us to take the roads less traveled. It's how we can unearth a new chapter in human history. It's what happens when 4 quarters of football weren't enough. It's how we're wired. To tune out the naysayers so innovations can be channeled. How else can you explain a university that's a leading producer of Fortune 500 CEOs and Peace Corps volunteers? Maybe the Wisconsin ideal is a better way to describe it. Because the UW is a hotbed for those who challenge the status quo, strive for the greater good, change the world. But breakthroughs can't happen if you're not willing to push. With the Wisconsin idea as our guide, expect nothing less. Because Badgers keep charging forward. Always forward. On Wisconsin.
Welcome, friends, faculty, and fellow graduates. My name is Caroline Matcomb, the senior class vice president for the class of 2019. Woo! On behalf of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I welcome you to the 2019 Spring Commencement ceremony at Camp Randall Stadium. Today is truly bittersweet. It marks the end of a chapter filled with hard work and good times. But it also turns us to unwritten pages, waiting only to be overflowed with even brighter accomplishments and fonder memories. Each and every one of you is celebrating the unique mark you have left on campus, the relationships you have created, the communities you impacted, and the adversity you overcame has built you into who you are today. But at today's ceremony, we won't just be celebrating your accomplishments, we are also marking a major milestone. The 150th anniversary of women receiving undergraduate degrees from UW-Madison. From 1869 onwards, thousands of women have transformed our university to make it a better place for everyone. Our 2019 senior class gift serves as a commitment to honoring these women. Through graduate and donor contributions, a permanent statue called the Monarch has been created to physically embody women empowerment in Wisconsin and the world. The statue is placed in Memorial Union's Hamill Family Browsing Library and is open for public viewing. Remaining proceeds were donated to the In Her Honor Fund, a chancellor's discretionary fund designated for campus programs that promote gender equity. Our senior class gift will leave a lasting legacy to honor the achievements of women over the past 150 years and for the next 150 to come. Speaking of legacies at UW-Madison, our opening performance group has celebrated 22 years on campus. As someone who has attended 6 of their shows, I can confidently say these men are famous for their drop-ins at the White House, impeccable charm, and of course, those red blazers. Singing Sweet Caroline, a personal favorite, please welcome the Mad Hatters.
How's it going, graduates? Where it began, I can't begin to knowing, but now I know it's going strong. Was it the spring? And spring became the summer. Who'd have believed we'd come along? Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe they never wouldn't. Now I'm. All right, guys. First of all, congratulations, everybody. We're gonna sing this 99 more times. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe they never wouldn't. Now we're done. Thank you all very much for the Mad Hatters. Happy graduation!
Please rise for the 2019 Spring Commencement Academic Processional. The processional is led by Jeff Gorski, an alum from the class of 1969 and a member of the Half Century Badgers, a proud representative of all our Badgers around the world. Please remain standing for the singing of our national anthem, performed by Master of Music, Vocal Performance, Class of 2019 degree candidate, Shaddai Salado.
Stripes and bright stars.
afternoon. Welcome to Camp Randall Stadium and to the 2019 Spring Commencement of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Please join me in a round of applause to honor and congratulate today's graduates, the class of 2019. We brought commencement back to Camp Randall 5 years ago, reestablishing a long-time tradition. It's great to be gathered in one place with all of the graduates, their families, and friends. I apologize for the weather. You'd think, as the birthplace of weather satellite technology, we'd have some control over these things. But at least it's not snowing. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the members of our official party. I'm going to ask each of them to rise when their name is called and to remain standing. And I'll ask the audience to please hold your applause until all members of the party have been introduced. Rebecca Blank, Chancellor. John Bailing, President, UW System Board of Regents. Cora Merritt, Alumni Speaker. William Karpus, Dean of the Graduate School. Catherine Vandenbosch, Dean of the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences. Ian Robertson, Dean of the College of Engineering. J.J. Watt, Keynote Speaker. You're allowed that exception, that's fine. Diana Hess, Dean of the School of Education. Margaret Raymond, Dean of the Law School. Carl Schultz, Dean of the College of Letters and Science. Soyan Shim, Dean of the School of Human Ecology. Stephen Swanson, Dean of the School of Pharmacy. Scott Ovchatik, Registrar. Raymond Tafora, Vice Chancellor for Legal Affairs. Charles Haslett, Vice Chancellor for University Relations. Lori Reeser, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. Barry Gerhardt, Interim Dean of the School of Business. Linda Scott, Dean of the School of Nursing. Ronald Steinhoff, Senior Class President. Carolyn Matcomb, Senior Class Vice President. Mackenzie Robis, Senior Class Events Director. Mara Matovich, Senior Class Communications Director. And Zach Clayman, Senior Class Philanthropy Director. Lauren Heller, Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. Norman Drinkwater, Interim Vice Chancellor for Research and Graduate Education. Patrick Sims, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Diversity and Inclusion. Mark Markell, Dean of the School of Veterinary Medicine. Robert Golden, Dean of the School of Medicine and Public Health. Argyle Wade, Interim Dean of Students. Jeffrey Russell, Dean of the Division of Continuing Studies. Carl Martin, Dean of Extension. Paul Robbins, Dean of the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies. Ito Podesta, Vice Provost and Dean of the International Division. John Ballacchino, Director of the Division of the Arts. Sarah Shute, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Alumni Association. Richard Amasino, Professor of Biochemistry and Chair of the University Committee of the Faculty Senate. Steve Smith, Secretary of the Faculty. At this time, I'd also like to thank the members of our faculty who are present and ask them to stand. And finally, the graduates who were chosen by their dean to represent their school or college by carrying its flag in the academic procession. Please stand. I would now like to introduce Rebecca Blank, Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Last summer, Chancellor Blank celebrated her 5th anniversary of leading this great university. She is an internationally respected economist who has also spent time in Washington, D.C., working in 3 different administrations. Most recently, she was Deputy Secretary and Acting Secretary of the U.S. Department of Commerce under President Obama prior to her selection to lead this university in 2013. Chancellor Blank received her undergraduate degree in economics from the University of Minnesota and holds a doctoral degree in economics from MIT. Nope. She has served on the faculty at Princeton, Northwestern, and the University of Michigan, where she also served as Dean of the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy. As Chancellor, she has committed herself to maintaining the university's position as one of the world's top centers for discovery and research, educating students to compete in a global economy, and helping our University of Wisconsin experts to share knowledge and innovation with the state, the nation, and the world, what we call the Wisconsin idea. Please welcome Chancellor Rebecca Blank.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Camp Randall Stadium and the 166th Spring Commencement of the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Today, 7,881, plus or minus, bachelor, master's, and law degree candidates will become alumni of one of the world's greatest public universities, making the class of 2019 quite possibly the largest in our history. Friends and family, you have the best seats in the house, where fans have been cheering on the Badgers for 102 years. And just for the record, that first game in Camp Randall was a shutout when we trounced the University of Minnesota. Today, those seats are filled with loyal supporters who have helped today's students arrive at graduation. Let's give your friends and family, graduates, all a round of applause for everything they've done. Now, the class of 2019 has left its mark at the university. This class set new records for community service. It helped make UW-Madison the #1 public university in the nation for students studying abroad. Together, and I've helped you on this, we've eaten 400,000 gallons of Babcock ice cream in your time here. You've battled for Bascom in epic snowball fights. When Madison got colder than the Antarctica for a few days last winter, you built igloos, you learned the term frostquake, and a few of you even figured out that tossing boiling water into very cold air creates snow. And just this spring, you watched the Badger women's hockey team win the national championship. They are great athletes and great students, and the co-captains and assistant captains of that team are graduating today, Annie Pankowski and Sophia Schaefer, along with Emily Clark and Maddie Rolfs. Congratulations to all of them. For some people here, today's commencement can be bittersweet. There are members of this class who passed away before graduation. They were friends and colleagues, and we pay tribute to their memory as well. 2019, as was noted at the beginning of the ceremony, marks an historic anniversary for UW. 150 years ago, in 1869, the first women earned bachelor's degrees from the University of Wisconsin. There were 6 of them: Clara Bewick, Anna Hedden, Jane Nagel, Helen Noble, Elizabeth Spencer, and Ella Ursula Turner. We honor them for their extraordinary individual achievements, but also as trailblazers for generations of extraordinary UW women who followed them, some of whom you're going to meet in just a few minutes in our video. Women like Sister Mary Kenneth Keller, a Roman Catholic nun who in 1965 became the very first person in the United States to earn a PhD in computer sciences. And she did it right here at UW. Sister Mary Kenneth was a fierce advocate for bringing more women into computer science and technology fields. Mabel Watson Ramey was the first African-American woman to graduate from UW. She earned her degree. She earned her degree 101 years ago and went on to become the first black woman lawyer in Wisconsin and was a role model for hundreds who followed her. And Ethel Coleman Allen, a 3-time UW alumna who did groundbreaking botany research here in the 1930s and helped to create one of the most beautiful spots on this campus, the Allen Centennial Garden. These remarkable women, and so many more, including the multi-talented Carl Merritt, who's going to share her story later in this program, are an important part of our history. Their work has shaped this university, this state, and the nation. But our celebration is about more than any single individual anniversary or individual accomplishment. In recognizing our women alums at UW, we are celebrating opportunity and opening up of possibilities that those first women experienced and that many of our graduates, regardless of gender, experience in their time here. Every one of you came to UW with your own dreams and your own unique story. You brought skills and talents and interests, and each of you has had somewhat different experiences here. But there's one thing that I hope every one of you discovered on this campus. It's the same thing those first 6 women found 150 years ago. By identifying skills, passions, and abilities that you may not have known you possessed, you discovered opportunity. And today we celebrate some of the extraordinary things that you've done with that opportunity. For instance, when Leah Johnson saw ways to make our campus more sustainable, she co-founded CLEAN, Campus Leaders for Energy Action Now. Leah and CLEAN have played a role in a number of changes, from installing bottle fillers on water fountains to bringing in our first ever director of sustainability. Leah also spearheaded a clothing swap, now in its 3rd year, bringing thousands of items for students to exchange. She's just accepted a position as an international environmental consulting firm in Chicago. Congratulations, Leah. Kent Mock came to this country from the Philippines when he was 13. He dreamed of becoming a doctor. But after his father passed away, Kent wasn't sure he was going to get to college at all. He found a way, thanks to a Posse scholarship, and made a decision to dedicate himself to helping others succeed. Today, Kent graduates with honors and is applying to medical school. And Abby Catania came to the UW to study agricultural and applied economics. But she noticed there were not many students of color in many of her classes, so she did something about it. First, she organized a program to bring students in from one of Milwaukee's highest poverty high schools for a 3-day overnight on campus to learn about the things we have to offer here. Second, she took $500 of her own savings to start a scholarship fund to encourage more students like her to pursue majors in agriculture. She brought in other donors, and the first Abigail Catania Diversity Scholarship was given last summer. Congratulations, Abby. that UW is a place that changes lives. But the university is just a collection of buildings on a lake. It is the people at the university who change lives. People like Leah, Kent, Abby, and every one of you who embraced the opportunity you were given to learn from a world-renowned faculty and then share that knowledge with others to help them succeed. That's the proud UW mission of outreach and public service, what we call the Wisconsin idea. And it's given you opportunities to learn things that we simply can't teach in a classroom. Things like how to be resilient when things aren't going well, how to ask for help when you need it, how to work effectively with people who come from different backgrounds, and how to be a leader. Those are skills every one of you are going to need to be successful in work and in life, which leads me to offer you two pieces of advice. First, learn to be uncomfortable at times. Remember when Brian Stevens came to campus? Most of you were in your first year when we read Just Mercy as our Go Big Read book. Brian talked about what he's learned from his work at the Southern Poverty Law Center. One of the most important lessons is that people who accomplish really important things are the ones who can tolerate discomfort. He said, we all like to seek the things that are comfortable rather than uncomfortable. But if I want to create justice, I have to get comfortable with the struggle. Those first 6 UW women knew something about getting comfortable with the struggle. They had a hard time here. They were frustrated that they couldn't take classes first thing in the morning. They had to wait till the men's classes were through. They had to deal with some of the male students, treating them like they simply didn't belong here. And some of the faculty openly questioned whether admitting women would dilute the value of the degree. It would have been easier to leave. And maybe some of you at times have had that same feeling. But they didn't run away, and neither did you. You've learned to have difficult conversations. You've learned to advocate for yourself. And I hope you've learned how to be uncomfortable at times. In those moments, when you stretch beyond your comfort zone, that's when you are most likely to learn and grow. Second piece of advice, know who you are and be that person. Don't try to be someone you're not. One of our students tells the story of coming here as an engineering major who struggled during his first year to admit to himself that he really didn't like engineering and he wasn't very good at it. With a lot of introspection and help from his advisor, he is now a very happy speech pathology major. I know that some of you have had similar experiences. College isn't just about learning an academic subject. It's about learning yourself and learning to accept who you are rather than trying to be someone else. Your student speaker today will share his story about trying to become, as he puts it, a real person rather than just a happy image on Instagram. When you're honest with yourself about who you are, what you love to do, what you're good at, that's when you'll be best prepared to make the right choices for your career and your life. I want to close where I began, with our first 6 women graduates. In many ways, they were no different than all of you. They came here for the opportunity to be educated at a great university. They were shaped by the same enduring values that have guided your Wisconsin experience. And the letters they wrote home weren't so different from the text messages that you send to your families, though I'm told that they asked their parents for things like a fresh batch of pickles and a new slop bucket. Clara Bewick was the valedictorian of that group of 6. You can read about her in your program. She became a journalist and a renowned advocate for women's rights. As her graduation approached, she wrote a letter to her grandparents, and I want to end with a passage from that letter. She wrote, "How strange it is that the years fly so quickly by. The close of each year brings us to a stopping place where just for a moment we may tarry and glance back over the road we have passed, a milestone measuring off the past from the future, the actual from the ideal. It is very pleasant to turn a new leaf, as yet clean and bright. So, forgetting the things which are behind us, we will run with patience the race set before us." I wish you all the best as you turn over a new leaf in your life. Keep in touch. Let us know what you're doing. Let us know how you're doing. And remember to come back and visit. You will always be part of the University of Wisconsin here in Madison, and I hope that UW will always be part of you. I can't wait to hear what you accomplish in the years ahead. Congratulations to the class of 2019, and on Wisconsin. It is now my honor to introduce John Robert Behling, President of the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents. Regent President Behling graduated from the University of Wisconsin River Falls with a bachelor's degree in political science and economics and received his law degree at the University of Wisconsin Law School in Madison. Regent Behling is the first Regent President from the Chippewa Valley area, where he's an attorney with the Eau Claire law firm of Weld Riley. He serves as the firm's president and chairs its government and administrative law practice. Even as his term on the Board of Regents comes to a close, I want to thank Regent President Behling for his service and for joining us here today. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, Chancellor Blank, for that very kind introduction. It's always a pleasure to be back on campus. When I was preparing my remarks this morning, my spouse was looking over my shoulder, and she said, "You're going to be speaking at the world-famous Camp Randall today. Are you nervous?" And I said, "I feel confident. I feel pretty good." And then she said, "The Chancellor said there's going to be over 50,000 people in attendance." I said, "I think I've got this. I'm feeling pretty good." Then she shouted out, "J.J. Watt's going to be there." Now I'm nervous. I know we're all looking forward to J.J.'s planned or unplanned remarks later today. On behalf of my Regent colleagues in the UW system, I offer to each of the graduates a sincere congratulations. Graduating is an important milestone, and I know you all worked very hard to get here today. It seems like just yesterday, I walked across the stage. It's now been 20 years, but to this day, I know that I could not have walked across the stage without the love and support of my spouse and family members. I know for each graduate here, there's a spouse, a mom, a dad, a loved one, a family, a colleague that helped get them through the tough times. Graduates, let's give a round of applause to that special someone who's with us here today. Just a few words about the Board of Regents in the UW system. The UW system consists of over 170,000 students, 44,000 employees, and 26 campuses. It's one of the largest, most celebrated university systems in the world. The UW system is truly one of the economic generators of the Midwest. The Board of Regents oversees the UW system, an 18-member board appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate, oversee the UW system. The last 2 years, I've had the pleasure of serving as president of the Board of Regents. Each day when I've woke up in the last 24 months, I'm thrilled and amazed at the brilliance and the abilities of our graduates. The Madison campus, our flagship, is the pride and joy of Wisconsin residents. No matter where you travel or take your degree, there's no one that can take it away from you. It's a degree that carries worldwide recognition, respect, and most importantly these days, integrity. One final point I'd like to make is even though the world is changing quickly, one thing that hasn't changed is the importance of higher education, where a dedicated faculty like we have at Madison inspires students, where innovative research expands possibilities, and where students encourage each other. UW-Madison exemplified that when I walked across the stage 20 years ago, and I know it will continue to do so for generations to come. In closing, graduates, I'm very proud of each and every one of you. Thank you for choosing UW-Wisconsin. Thank you for being a Badger, and on Wisconsin.
Thank you, Regent Bailing, for your remarks. It is now my pleasure to welcome to the podium the Vice President of the senior class, Carolyn Matcom, who will introduce our keynote speaker. Caroline is a Milwaukee native whose time on campus beautifully illustrates the global reach of UW-Madison. As a junior, she studied abroad in Scandinavia and traveled to Israel with other student leaders to learn more about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. She is the current president of Project Malawi, a campus group that aims to improve the quality of life for women in the African country, and she founded the UW-Madison chapter of Circle of Sisterhood. The chapter so far has raised $25,000 towards its goal of $40,000 to open a school for young women in Senegal. During her time with us, Caroline has been a powerful ambassador to the world, and we thank her for proving yet again that the Wisconsin idea extends far beyond this state and this country. Post-graduation, Caroline will be joining Google's Human Resources Department in Mountain View, California. Please join me in welcoming Caroline Matcom.
Thank you, Provost. It is truly an honor to introduce our keynote speaker, a former Badger who has gone on to great acclaim as both a world-class athlete and one of the most selfless, generous players in the NFL. Just a few years ago, J.J. Watt was playing defensive end for UW right here at Camp Randall. He started as a walk-on, but through hard work and perseverance, he rose to become the team's most valuable player and the 11th overall pick in the 2011 NFL Draft. His strong Wisconsin work ethic has continued to serve him well in the NFL, where his teammates on the Huston Texans have nicknamed him the Milkman because he always delivers. He's quickly becoming legendary, considered by many as the greatest defensive player ever. But it's the way he uses his NFL stardom for good that really sets him apart. As a community and nonprofit leadership major, I'm personally inspired by the J.J. Watt Foundation, which funds after-school athletic programs in communities where those opportunities have been lacking. He started the foundation while still a student here. 2 years ago, after Hurricane Harvey devastated Houston, Mr. Watt launched a fundraising effort that has now raised more than $41 million for hurricane relief. It's efforts like these, combined with his superior athleticism, that led Sports Illustrated to name him the 2017 Sportsperson of the Year, the same year he received the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year award. Please help me in welcoming to the podium the man who has been called a beast on the field and a saint off, J.J. Watt.
Broke it. Sorry. Hang on. I'm fixing it. All right, we're good, I think. Madison, it is absolutely incredible to be here. Thank you very much for having me in this beautiful city. I've obviously lived in Texas for the last 8 or so years, and it's been fantastic. The people are great, the food is delicious, and they love football, which is obviously good for me. But I have to admit that it's great to be back in a place where I can order fried cheese curds and chocolate custard and not get looked at like I have 3 heads. I've been trying to spread the word. Fried cheese curds just will not catch on. Last night I sat down to a Friday fish fry with some potato pancakes and a delicious spotted cow. You do, yeah. You've had one or two yourselves, I know. You do not realize how difficult it is to get spotted cow outside the state of Wisconsin until you live outside the state of Wisconsin. Every time I come back here, I pack it in my suitcase and I smuggle it out like I'm Pablo Escobar. If anybody here lives in Texas, my fridge is stocked. But in all seriousness, I'm extremely humbled and honored to be here today. I want to say thank you first to the Chancellor. I want to say thank you to the faculty, to the senior class officials, and of course, to the University of Wisconsin graduating class of 2019. When I was first asked to be the commencement speaker, geez Louise, great job, JJ. There we go. Maybe I should have wrote it down. When I was first asked to be the commencement speaker, I had media a couple days after. I had a press conference in Houston, and they asked, have you written your speech yet? And I said, no, I don't write speeches. And they said, well, what are you going to have on the teleprompter? And I said, nothing. Leave it black. I don't care. And then after that, people reached out to me. I had many people reach out to me and said, I want to help you write your speech. Professional speechwriters said, I will help you write your speech. All these people said, I want to help you write your speech. What do you want to write? I can write it for you. And my response was, and I hope I'm right, I think they asked me to be their speaker because they want to hear what I have to say, not what you have to say. Thank you. Not what a speechwriter can write for me, not what I can sit down and write out over the course of multiple months, what I think you want to hear. I think and I hope that you want to hear what I've learned throughout my time and what the University of Wisconsin taught me, what my career has taught me, what some of the things that I've been through in my life have taught me. One person on social media, who I assume is here today, even reached out and said, how dare you? I worked for 4 years for my degree. How dare you not prepare for your speech? First off, calm down. Okay? Calm down. I got it, all right? Just because I didn't write a speech down does not mean that I didn't prepare. I spent time watching YouTube videos of many commencement speeches from many different people. Just like you, I read a whole lot of Wikipedia pages. And last night, I crammed it all in and wrote something down on this little piece of paper. But I am prepared. I did think it through. And when I was watching those videos, I learned a lot of different things. One thing that I saw was that a lot of people made lists of life rules and goals and things you should follow. And I thought to myself, I don't think I'm a list guy. I don't know if I'm going to write a list. I don't know if I want to. There's a lot of people in this audience that are a hell of a lot smarter than me. I probably shouldn't be telling them how to live life. And then I started to write my speech. And what I wanted to talk about, not write it, up here. What I wanted to talk about was dream big, work hard. I started my foundation when I was at this university as a junior. I got a whole lot of help from the legal department at this school. They helped me work through the 501c3 paperwork. They helped me work through how to start a foundation. And dream big, work hard was my motto. Because I truly believed that you should have as big of dreams as you want in this world. Never let anybody tell you you can't accomplish those dreams. I once had a teacher who told me that my dream of one day playing in the NFL was unrealistic. Well, hello. I also had people who believed in me, and those people helped me get to where I was. You should have as big of dreams as you want to have. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. But to accomplish those dreams, you must be willing to put in the work. You must be willing to put in the time, the effort, the energy, the sacrifices that it takes to make those big dreams come true. And so as I sat there and I started going through what I wanted to say to you today and how I wanted to get my message across, I thought to myself, well, son of a gun, this sounds a lot like a list. So what I have for you today is 4 lessons that I've learned about following your dreams. I've followed my dreams all the way to where I am today, and I have a whole lot more that I'd like to do. But along the way to this point, I've learned a lot, and I'd like to share that with you today. I grew up 45 minutes from this stadium in Pewaukee, Wisconsin. Okay, we don't have that many people in the town, okay, so I know you're lying. Thank you. I appreciate it. When you're born in the state of Wisconsin, your childhood closet consists of three things: green and gold, red and white, and camo. Maybe some blaze orange in 2019, I don't know. I had the obligatory Brett Favre jersey in my closet, but what I really gravitated towards was the red and white. I wanted to be a Wisconsin Badger. Truth be told, when I was young, I wanted to be a hockey player. I did the skate with the Badgers. I loved it. I wanted to be a hockey player here. As I grew older, it changed to football. I came to my first football game in 2005 in this stadium. I remember everything about it, just like I'm sure you remember everything about your first time on this campus or at this stadium. Hopefully I'm not involved, because that's going to make me feel really old. Some guy here today brought a picture of me, and he said he painted it when he was in 8th grade. That hurt. That hurt. I just turned 30, and I'm having a tough time dealing with it, guys. Anyways, my first day here, when I came to the game, I did the tailgating. I can still smell the bratwurst. We played cornhole. The crisp was in the air. The leaves were changing colors. It's magical. It's truly magical, and I know that you all know what I'm talking about. When I walked into this stadium and I could hear the band playing, oh, all right, yeah, you guys. Shout out to Lacrone, huh? 50 years, what the? Hell yeah. I could feel the tradition. I could feel the history. This place has something special about it. On that day, John Stocco in the fourth quarter with 25 seconds left in that end zone right there ran a quarterback draw to score a touchdown to beat Michigan. I remember I was sitting right over there in those seats, and I thought to myself, this is it. This is my dream. This is where I want to be. I'm a Wisconsin Badger. Unfortunately, the coaching staff didn't quite agree. They said I was too small to play tight end here. They didn't have a scholarship for me. In fairness, I was 6'5", and very skinny and lanky. I looked like one of those blow-up things at a car dealership. So, I went to Central Michigan. I started my career there as a tight end. I was a starter. We won the conference championship, but something always felt off. I felt like I belonged somewhere else. And I felt like that somewhere else was here. I wanted to be a Badger. I transferred in, and I walked on to the university. Now, many people know the story that I delivered pizzas during that time to try and make a little money and help out. But not many people know this story, because I'm pretty sure I've never told it publicly. I used to be, that year when I walked on in Wisconsin, I was a maintenance worker in this very stadium. You can ask, I swear to God, you can ask Dick, Daryl, Jeff. I don't know if they still work here. Some of them, I hope they're still with us. The best guys. I love them. No. It's inside jokes, I mean, we get it. We would clean the seats. We would power wash the floors. We would paint the railings. And I specifically remember one day right up there in Section AA, I was painting that railing. Yeah, I painted it, so don't mess it up. Right up there, we get a 15-minute break. And I was sitting there on my break, and I was looking out over the empty field. And I thought to myself, imagine running out of that tunnel. Imagine being on that field wearing that uniform. That is my dream. And every day during spring practice, during training camp, I would go up to that office, see the balcony, 5 windows to the right of that. That was Charlie Partridge's office, my defensive line coach. I had switched over from tight end to defensive line. Every night at 10 p.m., after he was done with the starters, after he was done with his coaches' meetings, long after everybody went home, Coach Partridge would go over my scout team film with me. And he would show me where I should place my hands, how my footwork should look like, what to look for in opposing offenses. He taught me how to play defensive line. I tell you those stories for 2 reasons. One, to tell you what an honor it is to be here today. When I was sitting up there in Section AA painting those railings, I couldn't even have dreamed that I would be standing here in front of you as your commencement speaker. I also tell you that because it's the first lesson that I learned about chasing your dreams. The path to your dreams often never goes the way you imagine it will. When I dreamed about coming to Wisconsin, I dreamed about getting a scholarship out of high school. I dreamed about starting early on in my career and going and winning Rose Bowls. There were no obstacles. There were no challenges. Of course, I'd have to do the workouts and do the schoolwork, but I did not imagine making minimum wage painting railings in the stadium at Camp Randall as a walkout. And that's my message to you. Even to this point in your life, you may not have imagined how your college career would go. Maybe you didn't start here. Maybe you didn't start in the major you finished in. Maybe there were some tough times, some adversity, some obstacles along the way. But here you are, accomplishing one of your dreams. It will be difficult. It will not look the way you want it to look. But in the end, if you stay focused, if you stay true, if you have the passion for your dream, you will get there, no matter how difficult that path may be. That leads me to my second lesson that I learned, and that's that nobody accomplishes their dreams alone. I implore you to find somebody on this planet who has accomplished their dreams without the help of another human being. Nobody does. You need help, both good and bad, positive and negative. Positively, my parents helped me financially when I walked on here, leaving a scholarship behind. Coach Partridge helped me learn how to play defensive line. I have family, parents, friends, teachers, coaches, teammates that have helped me along the way in so many positive ways. You might wonder, how can you be negatively helped? Well, in 2011, I was drafted in the first round by the Huston Texans. It was one of the biggest days of my life. One of my dreams had come true. I was ecstatic. I hugged my family. My high school coaches were there with me. The people who helped get me there were there. And then I went back to my hotel room that night and I checked my phone because I wanted to see what Twitter was saying and see how the reaction in Houston was. And I clicked a video of the draft party at the stadium in Houston. The first thing I saw was some dude at the top of his lungs booing his heart out. They showed a video of the whole draft party. They all booed me. The whole place booed me except for like 2 people. I remember watching the video thinking, all right, there it is. That's my motivation. You can take negativity one of 2 ways. I could have said, oh no, how am I ever going to win these people over? This is terrible. But instead, I said, this is my motivation. My entire goal is to come to Houston and to work and earn those people's respect. You can use negative energy to power your dream. The most recent example of somebody helping me came when my 2016 and 2017 seasons were cut short by injury. 2016, I had a second back surgery that ended my season. 2017, I broke my leg. In between those 2 things, my girlfriend tore her ACL. I had just recovered from my back injury enough to where I could help her with her ACL in the beginning. Then, as she got off crutches and she started to walk, but she still had to wear a brace, I broke my leg. I couldn't walk. I had to lay on the couch for 2 months straight and not walk. And my girlfriend, who was still recovering from her own ACL injury, had to take care of me. I remember specifically sitting in my kitchen one day, and I broke down and I cried. I was devastated. I was in tears, and I just let them flow. I was supposed to be the one taking care of her. I am supposed to be the one taking care of other people. I'm not supposed to be the one getting the help. And that's the day that I learned that no matter how big you are, no matter how strong you are, no matter how tough you may be, everybody needs to ask for help at some point in their lives. We all could use a helping hand. We all can use can help somebody else. On the path to your dreams, you will not do it alone. You will need the help of somebody else. Don't be afraid to ask for it. Whether it's personal, professional, whatever it may be, don't be afraid to ask for help. And also, don't be afraid to lend a helping hand to others. There's no reason we can't all accomplish our dreams, and we can't all help each other accomplish our dreams. The third thing that I realized was that just as you can learn from chasing your dreams, you can also learn from your nightmares. In 2017, August, one of the biggest storms in U.S. history hit Houston. The city was underwater, there was flooding, people were losing their homes, people were stranded. My team was in New Orleans. We were flying back and we got diverted to Dallas. We were stuck in Dallas and we couldn't get home. On TV, we watched as the streets we drove on, the houses we knew, everything was underwater. We had families stranded back there. Teammates had wives, children stranded in their homes. There was nothing we could do. We felt helpless. I felt helpless. The city I love, the city that supports me, was in need, and I could not help them. I got my cell phone out, I sat in that hotel room, and I asked social media if it would help me raise $200,000. I knew what I would do with $200,000. I was going to buy food, water, diapers, and paper towels. I was going to help in any way I could. I knew how I was going to do that. Then it started to go up a little bit. And it started to go up and up and up. And in the end, it was over $41 million. I'm going to be honest with you, I did what I was going to do with $41 million. One of the first people I reached out to was a fellow Badger. You're going to be surprised at how many fellow Badgers you have in the world and how tight this fraternity is. I reached out to Jake Wood, who started Team Rubicon. He's done incredible work throughout his career in disaster relief and helping out all different disasters, Hurricane Katrina and everything. He was one of my first calls, and he helped me figure it out. And we sat down and we talked through it, and we came up with a plan. Before the hurricane and before the fundraiser, I had developed a bit of a negative attitude, a cynical attitude towards the world. We live in a very negative time. The news is negative. The lead stories are always diversive. There's things that are dividing us and pulling us apart, and I was worried. I didn't have a whole lot of hope. But in an instant, with that fundraiser, with the letters, the donations, hundreds of thousands of people pouring in their support from all over the world, not caring about the religion, the race, the ethnicity, financial status of the people they were helping, not knowing the people they were helping. The willingness to step up and help out their fellow human gave me hope. There is reason, there is good, there is true humanity out there in the world. We just need to shine the light on it. That hurricane fundraiser for me shined the light on how many good people there are in the world. It doesn't always make headlines. It doesn't always dominate our social media feeds. But I promise you, there is so much more good out there in the world than we realize. And the more that we can help to get that good out there and to shine the light on that good, we truly can make a difference. So I learned from that. Thank you. I learned from that even on your darkest days, even throughout your nightmares, when the sky is literally falling, you can learn from it. You can grow from it. There is a silver lining that you can find. I implore you, as you go through your journey and you chase your dreams, be sure to find those silver linings on your darkest days. There are going to be nightmares. I wish I could say there aren't, but it's just the truth. You're going to go through some very difficult times as you navigate these waters moving forward. When you go through those tough days, when you go through those difficult times, remember to learn something from them. Remember that you can rise above them. And remember that there is an opportunity to grow. The final thing that I learned from chasing my dreams is that I have a whole lot more left to learn. I know that I don't know everything. Nobody in the world has all the answers. They can lie to you and say that they do. They can post on their social media and act like they have a perfect life, but nobody does. There's a lot that have great lives, and I'm fortunate enough to be one of them, but nobody is perfect. Nobody has it all figured out. When you came to Madison, you may have had an idea of what you wanted your major to be, but I'm sure a lot of you didn't. When I sit here and I think about what I want to do after my football career someday, some days I think I have all the answers. Some days I know exactly where I want to go and what I want to be. Other days, I sit there with my cup of coffee, I stare blankly, and I think, what the hell am I going to do with my life? I'm sure you've all been there. You're at a point right now where you have your entire life ahead of you. You just earned a degree from one of the best universities in the country, and you have an entire world and so many opportunities sitting in front of you. You may not know what your dream is. You may not know what exactly it is you want to accomplish, and that's okay. But when you do figure it out, when you do remember the 4 things I talked about today. When you figure your dream out, remember, it will not be a straight path. Stay committed. Never lose sight of what it is you want to accomplish. Don't be afraid to ask for help along the way. And don't be afraid to help others along their path. Remember that there will be dark days. You will go through difficult times, but they are learning opportunities. They're growing opportunities. You can come out on the other side better than you went in. And remember that there's still a whole lot left for you to learn. Nobody has all the answers. You probably never will, but that's okay. Keep learning, keep inspiring, keep striving to be the best version of yourself. Today, you're accomplishing one of your parents' biggest dreams. Hopefully one of your own as well. Hopefully. We hope. And tomorrow, when you wake up, probably around like 2 p.m., you're going to begin a journey towards new dreams. You're going to have new goals. You're going to have new things you want to accomplish. As you go along that journey towards your new dreams, remember to help a few people out along the way. Remember to try and change the world for the better as you go. This is an incredible place that we live in. It's an incredible time. If we each do a little bit, if we each try and help each other out, if we're each not afraid to ask for help, we can do some unbelievable things. Together, we can change the world, one person at a time. Congratulations and thank you to the class of 2019. On Wisconsin.
I've heard a lot of great commencement speeches, but that one was really inspiring. Thank you, JJ, for your inspiring words to our graduates. At yesterday's commencement ceremony for doctoral candidates, we awarded 2 honorary degrees. These degrees are awarded not for the completion of a course of study like your degrees that we'll award today, but for living an extraordinary life. This year's recipients are Thomas Brock, a pioneering scientist whose research helped usher in modern molecular biology, and Steve Miller, a legendary musician whose advocacy on behalf of all artists is making the path easier for the next generation of musicians. I encourage you to read the profiles in the program of these 2 exceptional individuals, both of whom have strong ties to UW-Madison. I think you will agree that they richly deserve this special recognition.
It is my pleasure to introduce someone who does not need an introduction at Camp Randall, Professor Michael LaCrone, and the member of the University School of Music Band, who will play our musical selection this afternoon, Songs to Thee, Wisconsin, arranged by Professor LaCrone. This is a bittersweet moment for us. Mike, as you all know, is stepping down after 50 years as director of the UW-Madison Marching Band. This will be one of the last times that he leads the band. Please join me in thanking a gifted teacher, composer, and legendary showman who will forever be part of this university, Professor Michael LaCrone. Professor Leckrone, and all the band members for your contribution today. This year, as has been noted already, we commemorate an historic moment for female graduates on campus, and we're reminded of all the incredible and accomplished women who've called this university home. Our next speaker, Cara Merritt, is one of them. Dr. Merritt earned a master's degree and a PhD in sociology from UW-Madison and served on our faculty for more than 20 years. She published widely in the field of sociology while serving in a host of public and professional positions, including a long and distinguished association with the National Science Foundation. Most recently, she was the Foundation's deputy director, serving until 2014. Under her leadership, the Foundation increased its efforts to broaden representation in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This coming fall, it's too bad you're all leaving, I'm pleased to announce that Dr. Merritt has agreed to return to campus to teach a class on the Wisconsin idea, past and present. Please help me welcome Dr. Cara Merritt.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Blank. I have been called a trailblazer, but do my efforts to broaden boundaries in science, integrate fields of knowledge, and cultivate diversity, do they merit me the badge trailblazer? Not if the term, as often defined, depicts someone who rids trails of poisonous growth or clears wild, barbarous creatures from paths. But if trailblazing signals efforts to widen pathways and diversify path takers, then I embrace the moniker. Key challenges in the contemporary world call for advances in science. The demand is for systematic analyses on life, the physical universe, behavior, and the entities that people create. The imperative is for inclusion of fields of knowledge and for all of human talent. The lessons I've learned about the benefits of and potential for inclusion derive from varied experiences. Among those experiences, service on the Presidential Commission that investigated the nuclear power accident in Pennsylvania, extended years on the board of the Argonne National Laboratory, which is a Department of Energy operation, engagement with the Social Science Research Council, and countless other roles. I moved from being an observer and student of the scientific enterprise to someone seeking to affect that enterprise. Importantly, I learned that inclusion can be achieved through identifiable strategies, collaborations, and determination. My years at the National Science Foundation were especially pivotal as I embraced its charge to promote the progress of science and advance national health, prosperity, and welfare. Now, persons labeled as trailblazers typically do not set out to change the world. Rather, it is discontent with existing options alongside a vision of possibilities from which action springs. But this is how I imagine the situation of the first women graduates from the University of Wisconsin, the 6 who in 1869 received the first bachelor's degrees awarded to women. Possibly, they regarded the constraints of the day as unacceptable. The university had admitted men from its founding in 1848, but not women. In 1871, it created a separate female college through which women could take a limited set of courses. President Paul Chadbourne had approved the arrangement, certain that co-education would distract and impede the progress of male students. Subsequently, the regents disbanded the female college and admitted women into the larger university. Significantly, the change occurred for white women, but not for others. And in fact, it was 1918 before the first woman of color graduated from the university. Inclusionary efforts, then, do not inevitably reach across all boundaries. Now, obstacles to inclusion remain in the current era, but we can draw inspiration from the pioneering spirit that prompted the continued quest to remove obstacles. Dedication to trailblazing appears time and again in the annals of the university. Plaques on the campus and elsewhere record the memorable words that President Charles Van Hise issued in 1905. Those words, which I'm sure you have memorized: "I shall never be content until the beneficent influence of the university reaches every family in the state." Faculty, staff, and students have embraced and enlarged this mantra, striving to have the university work to benefit the larger nation and indeed the entire world. That spirit prompted Lisa Hecht to attend today's ceremony, a ceremony she missed when she received her degree in engineering 40 years ago. Now, on a personal level, I cherish my affiliation with an institution where the dedication to inclusion is long-standing and the pursuit of it perseveres. And I'm confident that the trailblazers who brought us to where we are today, 150 years after women first received University of Wisconsin degrees, would be proud, as am I, to see the path makers all of you will continue to be, and that you've already become. Thank you so much.
Ever wonder what puts the W in UW? Why women, of course.
We're celebrating UW Women at 150.
Imagine Wisconsin 150 years ago. It was 1863, the height of the American Civil War. The fledgling University of Wisconsin had lost much of its male population to the battlefield. The times were right to admit women.
Such a great start. Except women were later put into separate classes in the female college.
By 1869, the first group of trailblazers was ready to graduate. We know they became a lawyer, a high school principal, and a prominent suffragist who worked with Susan B. Anthony.
But before commencement, there was a holdup. President Chadbourne scoffed at the idea of conferring bachelor's degrees to women.
Did you ever wonder why it's called a bachelor's degree in the first place?
Fortunately, the Board of Regents decided that women should receive the same degree as men.
They also decided to honor President Chadbourne by naming a building after him, the first all-women dormitory, Chadbourne Hall.
Women officially received full coeducational status in 1874 and began taking classes with men.
They started working in biology labs and studying geology. At last, women had their chance to delve into science.
One of our alumni became the first woman geologist in the United States, Florence Bascom, daughter of former UW President John Bascom.
The work of another alumna, bacteriologist Alice Evans, led to one of the most important advances in public health in the 20th century, pasteurized milk.
At the UW, women in science were here to stay.
The first known African American woman graduated from the UW in 1918.
Mabel Watson Ramey was fired from her first job as a teacher because she was black. She went on to become the state's first female African American lawyer.
Soon, other UW women followed in her footsteps.
Women like Vel Phillips, the first African American woman to graduate from the UW Law School, and the first woman and African American to be elected to Milwaukee's Common Council.
Phillips championed fair housing and civil rights and went on to become Milwaukee's first female judge and Wisconsin's first African American judge. We named a residence hall after her.
In every aspect of the collegiate experience, UW women excelled. They proved their strength in physical education and showed their aptitude for 3D design.
Women participated in sports like basketball as early as 1900.
All across campus, women pursued their passions.
They didn't hold back on having fun and still don't.
But UW women also took life seriously. In the Army Nurse Corps during World War II, Signe Scott Cooper saw that nurses were much more than physicians' handmaidens. She devoted 60 years to nursing education at UW and supported a 21st century vision for the School of Nursing.
The theater was the stage for a different battle: civil rights.
Alumna Lorraine Hansberry's award-winning drama, A Raisin in the Sun, became the first play by an African-American woman to be produced on Broadway.
In the arts, UW women transformed modern dance.
Margaret Dobler founded the first academic dance department in the nation.
Sona Gale was the first woman to receive the Pulitzer Prize for Drama.
Gerda Lerner founded the nation's first graduate program in women's history.
Ada Deer was the first woman to lead a tribal nation and the Federal Bureau of Indian Affairs.
The first female drum major in the Big Ten was UW's Dee Willems.
The first woman and youngest person to head a Big Ten University police force, Sue Risley.
The first female chancellor in the Big Ten, UW-Madison's Donna Shalala. Biddy Martin was UW's second female chancellor, and now, me.
There are so many more firsts for UW women.
And when it comes to national championship teams,
Badger women win!
Looking back, we realize how far UW women have come in 150 years. Where will you go next?
Forward and on Wisconsin.
I love that video. Now, we are at the point of the conferral of our graduate degrees. I call upon Margaret Raymond, Dean of the Law School.
Doctor of Juridical Science, Juris Doctor, Master of Laws, and Master of Laws in Legal Institutions will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Raymond.
These scholars have successfully completed the requirements of the courses in law. Upon the recommendation of the faculty of the law school, I present these candidates for degrees.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the law school and under the authority granted by the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents, I confer on you the degree Doctor of Juridical Science, Juris Doctor, Master of Laws, or Master of Laws Legal Institutions. Please join me in recognizing the achievements of our law degree candidates. Candidates may be seated. I would now call upon William Karpus, Dean of the Graduate School, to present the candidates for master's degrees.
Candidates for master's degrees will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Karpus.
On the recommendation of the graduate faculty, I present these candidates for the master's degree in their respective fields. Master of Accountancy, Master of Arts, Master of Business Administration, Master of Engineering, Master of International Public Affairs, Master of Music, Master of Professional French Studies, Master of Public Affairs, Master of Science, Master of Social Work.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the graduate school and under the authority granted by the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents, you will be admitted each to your appropriate degree. Please join me in recognizing the achievements and congratulating these candidates. Please be seated.
I would now like to introduce our student speaker, Ron Steinhoff, who will deliver remarks on behalf of the senior class. Ron is from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and he is the president of the class of 2019. He embodies what we like to call the Wisconsin experience, which is our desire for our students to embrace learning inside and outside the classroom. Ron has studied abroad twice and spent time in Washington as a prestigious Mount Vernon Leadership Fellow. His intellectual curiosity and empathy led him to undertake an honors thesis in which he surveyed Hispanic and Latinx students about their experiences with mental health care services on our campus. His conclusions will help us make those services more accessible and inclusive. Ron initiated the position of Health and Wellness Chair at his fraternity, and this past year served as a student voice on a university committee promoting campus wellness. As you can see, Ron has made UW-Madison a better place, and we sincerely hope we've had a similar impact on him. I would be remiss without also mentioning that while earning a bachelor's degree in political science and Spanish, Ron simultaneously has been pursuing a master's degree through the La Follette School of Public Affairs on campus. He is about halfway to completing a master's degree in international public affairs, a field of study that will serve him well this summer as he works at the Pentagon. I'm pleased to invite Ron to offer remarks on behalf of the class of 2019.
Thank you, Provost Megelsdorf, for that kind introduction. Before I begin, I have one promise I have to fulfill. Exactly 2 years ago, I was sitting in this stadium, right over there, can't really see it. But when that year's senior class president was speaking, my mom tapped my shoulder and said, "Hey Ron, if you ever do this, you better thank me." At the time, I rolled my eyes and said, "Mom, I will never speak at commencement." But as JJ said, follow your dreams. So Mom, here it is. Thank you. I would be nowhere without yours and Dad's support. But I'm also a little concerned about what else you may know about my future. So now I'm supposed to tell you how with this degree, you will change the world. And likely, many of you will. But I want to take this time to talk about something a little bit different. Something everyone in this stadium can do. And that's being real. To take your mask off. At the start of my senior year, everything was going really well, and I was so excited to be back on campus. The anxiety I had struggled with in high school, I'd overcome. It was under control. I was nominated by UW for the Rhodes Scholarship, president of 3 organizations, and had a clear idea of who I was and where I stood in the world. When friends would ask how I did it all, I would just smile. But secretly, I enjoyed the comment. It showed that I had my life together. Yet, things began to unravel. I received the news that I didn't receive the Rhodes. Then came a job rejection, a scholarship rejection, and the bad news kept coming in. My future was unknown, and that scared me. I felt a growing sense of anxiety within me, but refused to admit it. Because to admit that my anxiety would be getting worse would be admitting weakness, and I refused to ask for help. On the outside, I acted like I had everything together. I was wearing a mask that said everything in my life was perfect. But on the inside, I was drowning. I'd go through my day, lead the meetings I had to lead, and do it all with a smile. But I still didn't ask for help. Things got so bad that one day I questioned if my own life was worth living. And as hard as it is to admit it today, if it weren't for my Christian faith and my amazing friends and family, I don't know if I'd be here today. It came to a breaking point. The fake everything is okay mask I was wearing was suffocating me. I broke down in front of one of my best friends. I shared how the thoughts of suicide terrified me. I was weak, vulnerable, and broken. But for the first time in a long time, I was real. It was me. The guy who always advocated for mental health care to others, who dedicated his entire thesis to it, finally admitted that he himself needed it. And the funny thing happened. After I was real with my friend and shared my struggles, I started to feel better. Together, we sought mental health counseling. We didn't, thank you. We didn't improve overnight, but we did improve. Through this simple act of being real and sharing my struggles with those around me proved to make all the difference. I began to learn more about myself as my thoughts began freed from anxiety's grip. Of the things I learned about myself, one stands out. And not everything I learned was simple. But although this was a very difficult conclusion to come to, in the past semester, I realized I'm bisexual. An identity that terrified me these past 6 months. But through being real and embracing myself, I could share with 50,000 people. Thank you. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and it was me. I now hope to serve as a mental health advocate for those who have their voice taken away, for those who haven't made it to the other side yet, to serve them. Looking back, I've realized a couple of things. I realized that in my despair, I found hope. In being real, I found myself. And in my weakness, I found strength. But enough about me. Let's talk about you, the class of 2019. We all have our struggles. It's what makes us human. You might have gotten rejected from the dream grad school, or maybe you didn't get the job you so richly deserved. No matter your situation, there's one thing you can do that'll make everything just a little bit easier, and that's to be real. Put the mask down. In a world inundated with social media posts where we can always paint our lives to be perfect, I encourage you to be different. To make the decision each day to put your mask down, wipe that fake smile off your face, and be real. Maybe talk to your friends about all the job rejections you had before posting on LinkedIn about how blessed and excited you are to start the one job that actually worked out. And again, friends, it isn't easy, but let me tell you, it is so worth it. In the words of the Canadian writer, Atticus Poetry, the hardest step we must all take is to blindly trust in who we are. Because in the end, our scars, our struggles, our insecurities have made us into who we are today. The world doesn't need a cheap plastic mask version of yourself. It needs the real, authentic version of you. The real you. So, University of Wisconsin-Madison, class of 2019. Let's show the world what it's like to be real, because that's one way we can change this world. Thank you. But before I go, we wanted to do something special to celebrate our graduation. And would you look at that? We're about 3/4 of the way through the ceremony. And that can only mean one thing. Hit it, Bucky!
I gotta catch my breath. Thank you, Ron, for your thoughtful and honest remarks. And thank you for a chance to participate in Jump Around one last time here at Camp Randall. This is my last graduation here, so it's bittersweet for me. At this point in our program, I'm pleased to acknowledge those bachelor degree candidates who have distinguished themselves scholastically by ranking in the top 20% of their school or college, or by participating in the honors program. These students are attired with honors stoles, solid cardinal red or white with red chevrons. I would like these
On the recommendation of the faculty of the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences, I present these candidates for the following degrees: Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Science Agriculture Business Management, Bachelor of Science Biological Systems Engineering, Bachelor of Science Dietetics, and Bachelor of Science Landscape Architecture. Candidates may be seated.
I now call upon Barry Gerhardt, Dean of the School of Business.
Candidates for bachelor's degrees in the School of Business will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Gerhardt.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the School of Business, I present these candidates for the degree Bachelor of Business Administration. Candidates may be seated.
I now call upon Diana Hess, Dean of the School of Education.
Candidates for bachelor's degrees in the School of Education will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Hess.
On recommendation of the faculty of the School of Education, I present these candidates for the following degrees: Bachelor of Fine Arts, Bachelor of Science Art, Bachelor of Science Art Education, Bachelor of Science Athletic Training, Bachelor of Science Dance, Bachelor of Science Education, Bachelor of Science Education Studies, Bachelor of Science Kinesiology, Bachelor of Science Physical Education, Bachelor of Science Rehabilitation Psychology, and Bachelor of Science Theater and Drama. Candidates may be seated.
I now call upon Ian Robertson, Dean of the College of Engineering.
Candidates for bachelor's degrees in the College of Engineering will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Robertson.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the College of Engineering, I present these candidates for the following degrees: Bachelor of Naval Science, Bachelor of Science Biomedical Engineering, Bachelor of Science Chemical Engineering, Bachelor of Science Civil Engineering, Bachelor of Science Computer Engineering, Bachelor of Science Electrical Engineering, Bachelor of Science Engineering Mechanics, Bachelor of Science Engineering Physics, Bachelor of Science Geological Engineering, Bachelor of Science Industrial Engineering, Bachelor of Science Material Science and Engineering, Bachelor of Science Mechanical Engineering, Bachelor of Science Nuclear Engineering. Candidates may be seated.
I now call upon Soyeon Shim, Dean of the School of Human Ecology.
Candidates for a bachelor's degree in the School of Human Ecology will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Shim.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the School of Human Ecology, I present these candidates for the following degrees: Bachelor of Science, Community and Nonprofit Leadership, Bachelor of Science, Human Development and Family Studies, Bachelor of Science, Human Ecology, Bachelor of Science, Interior Architecture, Bachelor of Science, Personal Finance, Bachelor of Science, Retailing and Consumer Behavior, Bachelor of Science, Textiles and Fashion Design. Candidates may be seated.
I now call upon Carl Schultz, College of Letters and Science.
Candidates for bachelor's degrees in the College of Letters and Science will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Scholes.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the College of Letters and Sciences, I present these candidates for the following degrees. Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Arts Journalism, Bachelor of Landscape Architecture, Bachelor of Music, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Science Applied Mathematics, Engineering, and Physics, Bachelor of Science Journalism, and Bachelor of Social Work. Candidates, please be seated.
I now call upon Linda Scott, Dean of the School of Nursing.
Candidates for the bachelor's degree in the School of Nursing will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Scott.
Sorry.
It's your line.
Well, we're all excited. On the recommendation of the faculty of the School of Nursing, I present these candidates for the degree Bachelor of Science Nursing. Candidates may be seated.
I now call upon Steve Swanson, Dean of the School of Pharmacy.
Candidates for the bachelor's degrees in the School of Pharmacy, all 22 of them, will please rise. Chancellor Blank.
Dean Swanson.
On the recommendation of the faculty of the School of Pharmacy, I present these candidates for the degree Bachelor of Science, Pharmacology, and Toxicology. Candidates may cheer and be seated.
At this time, I'm going to ask all bachelor's degree candidates to please stand for the conferral of degrees. On the recommendation of the faculty, and under the authority granted by the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents, you will be each admitted to the degree appropriate to the courses you have completed. Congratulations to the class of 2019. Class of 2019, you have now made the transition from students to alumni. Tradition dictates that before degree conferral, candidates are going to wear their tassel on the right side of the mortarboard. After commencement, to symbolize your status as graduates, your tassel is worn on the left. This is the moment to move your tassels. Congratulations to everyone. You may all be seated. In a moment, our celebration will end with the singing of Varsity. After Varsity, please remain standing until the stage party and the faculty processional have all gone all the way down the aisle. Congratulations to all of our graduates, and again, thanks to the family and friends whose support and encouragement made this day possible. Good luck to each and every one of you, and on Wisconsin! Please join Professor LaCrone and the University Band in singing Varsity.